It's never a dull day on social media from, legal analysts who are experts there, of course, on Twitter, talking about the release of former President Jacob Zuma, but also a heartbreaking video of an 110-year-old woman being evicted from her own home. At the same time, you're looking at Dr. Mpopalatse, who is now the former mayor of the city of Johannesburg, and quite a lot of people talking about this. There's also water shedding, there's also load shedding, so there's quite a lot that has been happening once again on social media. And Lerato Tshenkeng, who is the Decode Communications CEO, joins us in studio now to talk about this. Lerato, it's never a dull day in South Africa, never a dull day on social media, but I want us to start about, the release of former President Jacob Zuma. A lot of people talking about it, and you're seeing, of course, the resident analysts on Twitter even weighing in on this particular one. What is the sentiment there?
Good evening, Bongiwe, and good evening to the viewers. So, and I guess this time had always been coming, right? It was 15 months jail sentence by the Constitutional Court of President Jacob Zuma last year. And of course, then he was released on parole. And of course, we know that there had always been a case to test whether indeed the parole was valid. The DA had raised the issue. Of course, now that the term has ended, there is no other choice but to indeed confirm. And the Correctional Services Department did confirm. Of course, Twitter was always going to be ablaze. And generally, the sentiment seem to be a little bit more polarized. So there are those who really love President Jacob Zuma, and you see with the Jacob Zuma is free hashtag that has been doing the rounds for most of the day today, and those who feel that while he may have or at least the time may have elapsed, he has cheated justice, and some people are raising the issue of surely this issue around his parole should be tested, whether it is indeed the case that the parole was valid and the likes. And as you say, the legal analysts on Twitter, some of them trying to always explain what some of this means, their implications and the like. And of course, people will often make their minds based on whether they believe the analysts or not. And we know with the law, it's not always straight and cut and dry as that.
And interesting to even see that his own branch then moving to nominate him for the position of chair, which is something that he had hinted that he was going to be looking into and available for.
And so take that and put it against what the former ANC or the ANC chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, then says to say, listen, you can nominate him all you want, but this is outright silly, right? Of course, in politics, there's never a dull moment, but most importantly, there's always some sort of play. And we know that, and it's quite unfortunate, the politics of tribalism often rear themselves in the discourse. And again, that remember back even in the late 2000s, where the 100% Zulu boy used to be the sentiment. So I guess those will always surface where the support is not necessarily logical, it's not reasonable, but it's more the affinity to a tribe, the affinity to a sympathy. And we know President Jacob Zuma has always thrived with the sympathy and victimhood that he always portrays.
Let's talk about Mpopalatse. I mean, we saw quite a lot of talk around stages of grief there.
So former Mayor Mpopalatse, of course, when you look at her Twitter bio, it still says executive mayor of the city of Joburg. She was unseated, and she claims that it was a vote, and she claims that she's still the legitimate mayor of the city of Johannesburg. She claims that the process was flawed, the process was illegal. There's even a court case that is going on, and it is sad to see somebody, and again, when you look at how politics is almost now moving, the biggest sentiment has been perhaps we don't need career politicians to take over, right? So here you have a medical doctor who's a professional becomes a mayor, and there's a sense of we may see a different kind of flavor. Of course, then when this happens, she's having a public meltdown, completely, almost refuses to lose, or at least, to give up. But I think what is interesting is that if you think about it, when she became mayor, she did not know that she was going to be mayor. because there was no agreement between the DA and the EFF, where the EFF donated those votes to her. So it may be that, you know, when you get something like that, you almost want to hang on to dear life. Of course, the Twitter trolls, like, you know, one of our biggest, or at least, you know, most prominent furniture removal agency, he's always keep on saying to the mayor to say, it does not matter what stage of grief you are on, we are here to help you, we will help you move and pack your stuff safely.
And I tell you, that has been the funniest part, I must say, about all of this, because they're so consistent with how they keep posting that. But, you know, talking about something very serious, though, you know, the issue of water shedding and load shedding, you know, coupled with the heat wave, it didn't make things easy.
But Bongiwe, remember last time when we were here, the issue that we were talking about was the impact of load shedding on small businesses, right? And you know, the simplest example that we used was really around the people who are who are producing clothes for, you know, either weddings, events, and the likes. And when they don't have that kind of, call it backup, it paralyzes them. And now we are now finding out that Rand Water, as a water utility, which supplies other, you know, water utilities such as Joburg Water, Erwat in Ekurhuleni, they then become under pressure, because for them to function, they require energy. And we have recognized that a lot of the services that we use require energy. And unfortunately, these water utilities had to get to a point where they said, we then have to make a decision on rationing and you know, reducing the pressure. And, you know, apparently they also have stages, and I guess a lot of us are only finding out now that in fact the water utilities also have stages. So stage 1 is 20% less pressure, stage 2 30% less pressure, and we are at stage 3. Majority of the messaging and the communication has been around, we must not water our gardens, people, those who have pools must not, you know, refill their pools and the likes. And I think it is going to, although there has been a communique from Eskom now to say that from tomorrow the load shedding will be suspended, we know that this is never lasting. Next week we may be getting another communique that says that we're at a different stage. And the biggest question is, how well prepared is a Rand Water and the respective water utilities for then when it happens again?
Another, you know, story that was quite, you know, popular on social media, but it breaks one's heart, was the eviction of the 110-year-old grandmother from her house after the granddaughter allegedly sold that house for around 300,000 rand. You know, that has been quite a heartbreaking story, hasn't it?
No, indeed. But I guess, you know, while it is heartbreaking, and I hope I can mention the name of the channel, the Moja Love channel has shown us through programs such as Kukitila that these things happen almost all the time, right? Where a family home becomes a contested property or asset, and you know, who the legitimate owner is always contested, and then some of the shenanigans become people sell the houses without the you know, the knowledge of the occupants. And this was the case with Mekenaupe Musidi, who was living, you know, 110 years old, lives in the house, then the house is sold. And of course, when you are somebody who has you know, has paid money, and you are told that this is now going to be your property, and I imagine that, you know, the new owner should have had some sort of you know, go to and said, maybe it should give you some time, I understand that you're going to need a place to live, instead of evicting her the way he did. But the biggest question therefore is, what is long enough? Because possibly she may not have many family members that she could, you know, that could take her in. So I think it's one of those things that while this is the one story that showcases, you know, the heartlessness of people, we know that the problem is actually more pervasive than this just one story.
And it's, you know, quite bringing into sharp focus that issue that we always even see in Soweto, for example, where you even see it's, you know, stuff written on the walls to say, do not buy this property and all of that, given the sentiment of what may be happening there. As we wrap up very briefly, let's talk about Lesufi and the new cabinet. What are people saying?
You know, he was always going to dominate the news. The announcement was made on Tuesday that there was going to be a provincial legislature sitting on Thursday. It sat, and the biggest thing was that the outgoing premier is not ousted. But of course, Pakstau is the story that a lot of people are talking about, at least out of the new cabinet that has been announced, to say he was in the province, went to be the deputy minister in Kokta, came back to provincial, and now he's not in the cabinet. And that has been one interesting observation. But also keeping Ms. Kombi Cots has been one of those sentiments that has been, Faith Mazibuko, the MEC of Safety, has been one of those that is keeping the chatter going.
You took me back to that moment of Kombi Cots. Goodness me, I wonder what became of that audio. But thank you so much for your time, Lerato. And of course, we'll see then if there's not another redeployment for Pakstau. But let's leave it there for now. That is Lerato Tshenkeng, who is the CEO of Decode Communications.